Montana Talks here. Live and local. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
Serving the great state of Montana, from the peaks of the Beartooths to the banks of the Clark Fork River. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
You know, I thought I was going to be down here flying solo for the first hour or so, and then as everybody starts waking up and getting into town, then the microphones will be racked and stacked for the rest of the morning. But we've already got a couple of great guests here joining us at the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman this morning. Kerry, let me start off by saying hello to you first. Of course, former legislator here out of the Gallatin Valley, longtime, public servant for what you do with Citizens for Balanced Use. Great to see you this morning, my friend.
Great to have you in Bozeman here, Aaron. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and see you.
I was actually thinking about giving you a call yesterday because I was driving, down the road and one of these radio commercials came on, the something Waters Legacy Act, and I was like, yep, of course, it's the fake environmentalists pretending to, they put out just put out these phony commercials. Oh no, this is just a nice designation we want to give to a river. Don't worry about this. And it's like, this is just a radical environmentalist trying to shut us down as always, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
One little step at a time, and they've got centuries to do it. It's a long-term plan.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I know we'll have a lot to talk with you about as well. Also want to welcome here, first gentleman I saw this morning is actually one of the speakers at the the Gallatin County Republican Women Luncheon here. I just left the Yellowstone County Lincoln Reagan a couple of weeks ago, but the Gallatin County Republican Women Luncheon today, Charles Garner is going to be one of the speakers, and he's got a book out, A Canary in a Coal Mine, Hope for a Culture in Free Fall. Charles, great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining me.
Good to be with you.
Yeah. Well, I hope we didn't get you up too early this morning.
No. 2:42 this morning.
2:42, yeah. Well,
early riser.
You got to be ready for those East Coasters to start impacting the culture.
You actually do. Yes. We're 2 hours behind the East Coast. And so when you're dealing with New York, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, you're up early talking to them. And that's true for D.C. as well. If we're going to have an impact on our representatives, on our government, you got to talk to those people early as well.
You got to get an early start. That's right. That's right. Well, that's why I love sometimes, I think about it when I'm actually on the radio in Montana, like 6 a.m. right now, right, Montana time. But heck, somebody could just be getting to their office in D.C., and I know they do. I know we've got, folks that work for our delegation that will listen through our app. And that's how they get their morning started. So let's get them started by hearing what we have to say.
That's right.
Yeah. But you actually live in the Flathead. Are you you must be a southern Flathead County guy based on the accent.
From my accent, yes. I started working here in Montana in 1999. And my wife and I were already looking for a place to retire. And when I'd worked in 36 states, so I had a pretty good view of the United States. Never had been to Montana. That was my 37th state.
Oh, man.
It was my last state. I said, this is where I want to live.
The last stop is always in the last best place.
That's
and
right.
I'll tell you, the Flathead Valley, oh, man, much like the Gallatin Valley, incredible country. All right, our first news and weather break here of the morning. We're broadcasting live from the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman. Come down and see us. More with Charles Garner after this, and then we'll talk with the great Kerry White as well.
Securing America.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin spoke to part of the military's future Thursday, meeting with members of the ROTC program at South Carolina State University, as well as troops from nearby Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina.
Let me begin by thanking you for raising your right hand and volunteering to join the greatest team on the planet.
Austin telling those on hand there are no shortcuts in the service they have chosen.
You get to be successful by putting in the work.
And Austin said in exchange for that hard work,
we ensure that we're going to have a great military by investing in you.
The secretary told the young soldiers that their challenges will only grow over time. But if they demonstrate that they care about the people serving underneath them,
they will refuse to let you fail. They will propel you to success.
Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
Here's a look at your real weather for Billings and Bozeman. With sunny skies across the area for today, high temperatures will range from around 60 in Bozeman to the upper 60s in the Billings area. Then skies stay mainly clear tonight. Low temperatures from the upper 30s in Bozeman to the mid 40s in Billings. And that weekend outlook calls for more sunny, mild weather conditions, with highs on Saturday ranging from the low 70s in Bozeman to the upper 70s in Billings. This is weatherology meteorologist Paul Trombley.
Friday's Montana Talks. We are broadcasting live from the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman. If you're in the Bozeman area, whether you live in Bozeman or you're in town for the graduation this weekend, come down and see us. Again, Montana Talks broadcasting live from the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman. We've got the microphones open for you. Anybody who wants to join us, come down and see us. Full details, MontanaTalks.com, because I'll be making a couple of other stops along the way from Belgrade to Big Timber. Details, MontanaTalks.com.
Taking your calls live. 406-294-0970. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
All right. Hey, hold your phone calls for this morning, but if you want to join us live on the show and you're listening to 1450 KMMS here in Bozeman, come down and see us. We're live at the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman here all morning long, and great to have our first guest this morning. Charles Garner is going to be speaking at the Gallatin County Republican Women's Luncheon here. He's got the book A Canary in a Coal Mine. And Charles, you were telling me this book is about the rise and fall of empires, and boy, are there many Americans that are concerned that our empire may fall, given the craziness going on right now.
Well, that's the threat. My writing partner was, his undergraduate was in economics. Both of us have seminary training beyond that. Mine was history. And so combining the two, we started looking at the rise and fall of empires going back to the first empire, the Akkadians, and bringing it forward. Because a lot of the Old Testament is dealing with world empires. You're dealing with Assyria, you're dealing with Babylon, you're dealing with the Persians, you're dealing with the Greeks and the Romans, all of those. So that gets you, well into, the Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire did not fall until 1453. But it nearly collapsed in what is called the Third Century Crisis. And it's the Third Century Crisis that is the greatest parallel to America today. The same threats that we have, they had. And it nearly collapsed them. But they were able to pull it back. 2 Roman emperors rose during that period of time to pull back the collapse. And the Western Roman Empire lasted for nearly 200 years. And then the Eastern Roman Empire, as I said, lasted another 1,100 years. So you don't have to collapse. And I guess that's where we get the subtitle, Hope for a Culture in Free Fall.
Yeah, because you were telling me that you had, several folks across the country, kind of leading thinker type folks, read this book, and they said, you guys are a little more optimistic than we are. You guys are a little more, you actually think, yes, we can save America. We can save this country before the fall.
I think so, yeah. When you look at America in terms of conservative beliefs, when you do a county-by-county map of the United States, it's mostly conservative people.
Meaning mostly sane, not crazy people trying to chop body parts off of kids.
That's exactly right.
Shut down all the coal mines and the power plants.
Absolutely.
And exactly. Yeah, just normal, everyday folks who can't believe the craziness we're seeing right now. But look at how slim the margins are in a lot of these elections. And that's another point that you're trying to get across
that's
here.
That's exactly right.
Because you were telling me this book is really a message to evangelical Christians in particular.
That's the group.
Message for all of us, but especially them.
I was in evangelical ministry for 50 years. John, 40, before he died. He died before the book was published. This is his last word to America and to the church. And it is to arise, to stand up. You mentioned Germany and the fall and what pastors did there. And basically they were silent. And if we remain silent, there's going to come a time when nobody is there to speak for us. That's exactly what Neumüller said. in his poem, First They Came. First they came for this group, and I wasn't a part of that group. And then they came for this other group, and I wasn't a part of that group. But eventually they came to me, and then there was no one to speak for me. And that's, I'm afraid, is where we are.
You know, you mentioned some, leading Christian thinkers. Boy, the Flathead Valley sure has had some there over the years. I mean, Eugene Peterson called the Flathead home. I mean, just some incredible folks, some leaders in YWAM that call the Flathead home.
Absolutely, at Lakeside.
Just some incredible leading thinkers there. Not just thinkers, but doers, right?
Yes, they're engaged.
But your point, I know you were saying, is that, look at how many evangelical Christians have sat on the sidelines and done nothing in the political arena, and yet look at how the political arena now is driving this crazy cultural stuff.
Let's just take the 2020 and 2016 elections. Pew Research said that there was 6 to 7% of the evangelical community that voted in 2016 sat on their ballot in 2020. They didn't vote. The numerical translation of that percentage is 4.1%. 4.1%. You talk about margins. Think about the Georgia election. Georgia was decided by less than 12,000 votes, the presidential election in 2020. But what we failed to realize is the down ballot. There were 2 Senate seats. Perdue was opposed by Ossoff. Ossoff won, Democrat. He won by 1.8% of the vote. Kelly Loeffler was against Warnock. Warnock won by 2% of the vote. Think about Arizona. Arizona was decided, the presidential election was decided by 0.3%. That is less than 1% of the vote. 10,000 votes decided that. How many people sat on their ballot? They sat in the pew, sat on their ballot, and didn't go to the polls. And look where we are. I think if they had showed up, we might have a different culture. We would have a different economy. The United States would be different. I think the world would be different.
I think you're exactly right. I think, because there's some people, and, as I've been traveling the state doing these events, we run into a lot of different people. And there was one guy who pushed back on this. We were targeting Bidenomics and Biden and Tester and the massive inflation. And one young man made a comment to one of our guys and said, well, guys, this stuff, politics just isn't as important as what's going on over here in the church. It's like, wait a minute, the church is under attack right now because of politics.
That's
and because
exactly
of what,
right.
And it's just like, but people, they just want to go bang their bongo drum and send out hashtags about Save Darfur and think that they're patting themselves on the back being good, nice people, right? We got to take another quick break here, get your farm and ranch report in and more.
Good morning, everybody. It's time for your Daybreak Egg Report. I'm Russell Nemitz, and thanks for being with us here on the Western Egg Network. Well, this week we've been sharing some very important news for public lands ranchers regarding the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And this morning, our network's Rachel Gable tells us about some changes to NEPA and what these changes could mean for public lands ranchers here in Western Egg Network country.
Public Lands Council's Caitlin Glover said the passage of the Fiscal Responsibility Act should have kept the White House Council on Environmental Quality in check, though the CEQ, she said, largely ignored the direction and has made NEPA more burdensome and challenging. The good news, however, is the opportunity for producers to weigh in with the individual agencies. Here's Glover.
So all of these federal regulations coming out, the BLM will have to do one, the Forest Service will have to do one, all the other agencies will too. That will be their own rulemaking process. So there will be notice, there will be comment, there will be opportunities for engagement. And so as those rise, you'll be hearing from us, and we hope to be hearing from you as well, because your voices telling the agencies how this impacts you and your farms and your neighbors' farms and your neighbors' ranches is some of the most helpful content that we can include as part of that administrative process.
Requests for public comment are likely to post soon, giving public lands users an opportunity to perhaps soften the blow behind this NEPA final rule. For the Fence Post Magazine and the Western Ag Network, I'm Rachel Gable.
All right, thanks a lot, Rachel.
Now, for more details about the final rule, you can visit us online at westerneggNetwork.com or check us out on Facebook. Stay with us. We'll have more egg news right after this.
Time is precious to get the crop in the ground. Weeds already have a foothold and options are limited. With Vita Burn Down Herbicide, you're not restricted. You have a 0 to 1 day plant back so you can apply one day and seed the next. When tank mixed with your choice of pre-plant herbicide like sulfentrazone, Vita adds quick control of most broadleaves including glyphosate and ALS-resistant weeds. Vita adds power to your burn down but doesn't add time. Ask your chem dealer about Vita Herbicide. Always read and follow label directions from Gowan Company.
Hello, this is Boyd Heilig, President of the Montana Grain Growers Association. With springtime upon us, the Montana Grain Growers would like to wish all of our members a safe and successful start to another growing season. The time and effort you put into your acres is a testament to the dedication of American farmers who provide an abundant and secure food supply for the U.S. and the world. Thank you again for your hard work and all that you do, and happy planting.
Well, celebrating a truly remarkable milestone, the National Corn Growers Association on May 1st proudly launched its 60th annual yield contest. Now spanning 6 decades, this event truly is a testament to the ingenuity and dedication of America's corn growers. The contest continues to attract participants eager to push the boundaries of agricultural innovation. NCGA President Harold Woolley of Minnesota says the contest continues to showcase the incredible potential of American agriculture and also fueled a spirit of camaraderie and collaboration among growers nationwide. Now, this year's corn yield contest is open for entries from now until August 14th. Get more details or even submit your entries by visiting the National Corn Growers Association's website. For the Western Egg Network, I'm Russell Nemitz.
This is where Montana talks. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
All right, Aaron Flint here, broadcasting live from the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman. Hey, send us messages on the Montana Talks app, and Travis is relaying those to me because, when we take the show on the road, it's a little hard to take your phone calls, but we still want to hear from you, and we know that you want to jump in on the conversation with questions or comments or whatever. Jay in Billings says he's going to go dust off his black robe. He's going to go dust off. He enjoyed what he's hearing here from Charles Garner about his book, A Canary in a Coal Mine. We're going to talk more with Charles Garner. I think what I might do is after our next big break, maybe I'll mic up both Charles Garner and Kerry White, and then the three of us can just yap back and forth. But Kerry White, I want to get to you, of course. Man, you've got such great insight, not just here in the Bozeman area, Gallatin Valley, but statewide when it comes to, access to our so-called public lands.
Yeah.
My liberal buddies get really angry when I say so-called public lands. They're like, they're public. Why do you call them so-called? Because you guys are constantly trying to lock us out of them. That's why I say so-called.
Yeah. We got about 50% of the public land in Montana that's closed to multiple use, to resource development, to access. Those could be national monuments, wildlife management areas, roadless lands, wilderness study areas, wilderness areas, all of those things. So we are really getting down, and what they're closing off out there to mining and stuff. I think I talked to you a while back about this Missouri Headwaters Conservation Area that's being proposed, 5.9 million acres down in southwest Montana, to be managed as a wildlife management area, which would throw any kind of mining and mineral resources under the bus. And also multiple use and grazing. It's going to be hard on the farmers and ranchers and stuff. So all of these actions, and I came in this morning, really, Aaron, because I heard Josh Hawley kind of hammering the Interior Secretary the other day for these secret meetings that her staff has been holding with the Wilderness Society.
Yeah, Hans-Jörg Wyss's buddies.
And those are the George Soros, those are the American Prairie Reserve funders and stuff that are out there. Mm-hmm. But those environmental groups that are funded by these billionaires and foreign nationals their agenda is to lock us out and off of our public lands. And there's a new rule that's coming out for the Endangered Species Act, and this is going to allow the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to designate critical habitat for endangered or threatened species when there's none present. Yeah. It's unoccupied by the species, but it's potential habitat, so then they can designate it as critical habitat and close any kind of mineral, oil and gas development, grazing.
Every day there's a new threat by this administration. Hold that thought. We'll be back in 60 seconds after this Fox News update here. Yeah, back in 60 seconds.
Fox News, I'm CJ Papa. Tornado outbreak in Tallahassee, Florida.
A confirmed tornado observed on the ground where we have millions of people living.
Fox News meteorologist Janice Dean, thousands without power in the Florida capital. Day 15 at former President Trump's criminal trial. Cross-examination resumes of the former White House aide, Madeleine Westerhout.
Prosecutors called her to testify about Trump signing checks, but court observers say her appearance backfired on the prosecution. She tearfully cried on the stand, praising Trump, saying he is a good family man, and told the jury that he was a great president.
Fox's Eric Shawn. Fox has learned that the prosecution's star witness, Michael Cohen, will take the stand on Monday. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. University of Pennsylvania police and riot gear moving in, clearing out the anti-Israel tent city earlier today. America's listening to Fox News.
You know, I haven't even said the Big John Tester news yet. Yeah, Carol was like, what's that? I was just saying that during the break here. Carol with the Gallatin County Republican Women's. Got some donuts here, by the way, if people come down and see us and say hi. But, yeah, the big flip-flop, flat-top, fake moderate, liberal Senator John Tester, here he goes again. He just voted against the Lake and Riley Act. What was that, 3 weeks ago? He voted against the Lake and Riley Act. Yesterday, he flip-flopped. His polling must not be looking very good in this U.S. Senate race here in Montana. Now he says he's going to support the Lake and Riley Act. Kerry White, isn't this so typical of flip-flop, flat-top, the fake moderate? I support the Keystone Pipeline, but then he votes against it when it really matters.
That's right, and I saw the ad that he's been trying to secure the border for years in his campaign, and I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like you said, shut down the Keystone Energy Development. His funding comes from the radical environmental groups, and that's who the Biden administration is really catering to, is these radicals. We see them on the college campuses. What upset me the other day, I could not believe it, is when Biden pulled the funding for, the arms for Israel.
Wasn't that crazy?
It just makes me sick to my stomach. The last stand, basically, in the Middle East to protect, freedom and capitalism, and he's going to not allow them to go forward by providing them just the arms.
It's crazy. If Donald Trump even hinted at doing something like this, they would have impeached him. But Joe Biden does it, and they're like, I say yes.
Aaron, was this the plan going in when they attached the Ukraine funding with the Israel funding, and they passed it? Schumer says, well, we've got to have them both. We're going to put them both together. Did Biden know and Schumer know that Biden was going to pull this aid to Israel?
That's a really good question.
Before they even passed the bill that attached the two together.
So, hey, give us both of these. Give us Israel and Ukraine, and then we'll figure out a way to stop the Israel aid, even though Congress approved it and authorized it. Sure as heck wouldn't surprise me. That's a great question.
And the other day I heard that Biden has designated 5 national monuments in the United States since he's been in office. There's a big push here in the Gallatin to create a national monument between Bozeman and West Yellowstone Park. They couldn't get it into wilderness in the forest plan that was recently signed by the supervisor. So now I think what we're going to see is a huge deal like what Clinton did and designated the Clinton roadless rule in the last days of the presidency. But it's really abuse of the Antiquities Act.
So they may try to do a unilateral monument designation.
Yes.
between Bozeman and West Yellowstone.
Signature by the president.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. That is absolutely. Of course, we saw what Bill Clinton did to Central Montana in the waning days of his presidency. All right, we're going to mic up Charles Garner and Kerry White right after this.
Hey, if you missed it on Wednesday's show, we got a surprise phone call from the Flathead County Sheriff and the mayor of Kalispell talking about the big story regarding the illegal aliens dumped in Kalispell last week and how we can or how we should respond. Full audio on our Montana Talks website, or better yet, download the Montana Talks app for your smartphone. Click the on-demand button. You can download not only that show, but all 4 hours of every day's show on the Montana Talks app on your phone. So was Donald Trump mocking John Tester for looking like a pregnant woman, or was he mocking Democrats for thinking men can get pregnant? Either way, the story, MontanaTalks.com.
Taking your calls live. 406-294-0970. Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
All right, now we're going to mix it up with both Kerry White and Charles Garner. Why the heck not here? Because we've been having some great conversations during the break. But Kerry White, what else do you want to talk about? What else do you think people across Montana need to hear about?
Well, I came in this morning and I didn't expect to see Charles here. And then we were talking, and he's a fascinating gentleman and he's an historian. But we made a connection right off because we both come from dairy farms.
Oh, okay.
Now, go figure. And we were talking about how you work on a dairy farm. You got to milk cows twice a day, and you don't ever get a vacation. But you do get to dip fresh milk out of the tank and drink it. So that is a good thing.
Do you like fresh milk out of the tank? Oh,
yeah.
man. Yeah. That's
we had the cream separator, crank the handle. My dad used to love the cream on his cereal in the morning. I really didn't care for it, but you buy this in the store nowadays. Even the whole milk is not whole milk like it was
like it used to be.
Out of the cow.
The real thick stuff.
Yeah.
Well, did you grow up in the Dutch areas here in the Gallatin Valley then? Okay.
That was my great-grandfather's brother who settled out by the Manhattan area out there, and they raised potatoes.
Yeah.
But my great-grandfather settled originally in the Madison. We've had this place since 1868, cow-calf operation. Got my sister-in-law has sheep and horses, my brother. But, we've been on this place for 150, 160 years and, trying to hang on. But the cattle prices are up this year, so I think my brother's going to do pretty good on the cows and stuff.
Well, they'll take it from him somewhere else, though, so he still won't be happy. It's
Well, I feel for the folks that are out there, and I talk about public land access and stuff, and a lot of it is, these grazing leases that farmers and ranchers have, and they're dealing with it with the American Prairie Reserve, where they're switching those leases over to year-round bison for the American Prairie Reserve out there, and removing. I think Dan Bartel told me they've lost over 60,000 head of beef in Lewistown area by losing those leases. But if you don't have that lease to move your cows onto in the summertime, then you're not able to raise hay to put the hay up to feed your cows through the winter. So you're really collapsing that agricultural operation by losing those grazing leases.
And it's intentional. Kerry, I think everything you not only are talking about this morning, threats of monument designations and between West Yellowstone and Bozeman, but all these other, deliberate, Charles, I'm sure you're familiar with this, living in the Flathead Valley. You've probably heard about the American Prairie Reserve. Basically, Hans Wies, who is this George Soros-type figure that funds all these radical environmental groups, he's one of the contributors. And they're going in and deliberately trying to get these cattle ranchers off the land and turn it into their own little playground for these left-wing elites. But the thing is they are working in collusion with our federal government. Biden administration, the BLM director, they're giving special perks to the APR that they would have never given to these ranchers here in Montana. And I think it ties in with your discussion about, the fall of empires, that this is deliberate. These are deliberate attacks on America. These are self-inflicted wounds that are taking place right now.
It appears to be intentional. And it's just insanity. I cannot understand why the border. Let's just take it. Why are we allowing millions of undocumented people to come into this, who are, many of them are known gang members? Crime is up across the country. And I've watched the House and Senate interaction with Mayorkas to try to hold him accountable for this. And he keeps saying the border is secure, the border is secure. But the pictures that you see from like Todd Bensman, for instance, with CIS, they are, it's massive, the amount of people who are coming into our country. You and I have to, if you fly, you have to present all kind of documentation.
They're even trying to scan your biometrics now if you come back in from a vacation somewhere. It's like, wow, I remember taking biometrics on folks overseas for military operations. Why are they trying to take my biometrics just coming back to my own country now? You know,
are they doing that same thing on the border for the people coming across? Are they tracking them? We don't even know where many of these people are. And that's not even counting the gotaways. The gotaways, if they're not coming across and presenting themselves to border agents, those are the people who are getting in line for the freebies. The other people who are the gotaways, why are they trying to escape when there's free housing, lodging, health care, all these sorts of things here waiting for them at the hands of the taxpayer? Why are they? Because it is nefarious. Their intent is not to help America. Their intent is to harm America.
Kerry White, I've had one listener, Matt in Bozeman in particular, said he's had run-ins. He's had some like altercations with some hostile individuals and because of traffic deals. But he says it, and I think you can see it too. He's like, there is definitely a different demographic in the Gallatin Valley right now. Safe to say that. Like, even from 2 years ago, it is a different demographic in Bozeman right now.
It follows the money. And where there's money, you get this demographic that follows that. And we're seeing a higher crime that's going on. We've got high-speed chase out on Spring Hill Road the other day. We've got Big Sky and the money that's up at Big Sky and supports the valley. It's brought a lot of money to the valley. It's made home prices $1 million for a starter home in the Gallatin Valley. Makes it unaffordable. We've got people out there that are working, living on the street and camping. But Mr. Fletcher, who owns the pit, which he's, brought this to the attention of the city commission several times. And it just, Austin Knutson, I heard him speak at a fundraiser a couple months ago. He said, currently right now in Bozeman, we have 2 operating cartels. And so how do you get a handle on this?
Just last night when we were doing this event, we were out at the Black Pot Distillery in Belgrade with Owen and crew and great. And then there's a barbecue joint next to that that's very popular. And so we were just talking to a bunch of random folks. And I ran into one guy, I won't say which agency, but law enforcement. And hey, thanks for your service. And I was talking about the Flathead County Sheriff, who I interviewed just a couple of days ago because he got these illegal aliens from Venezuela that showed up on his doorstep.
Exactly.
And I said, what stood out to me, I mentioned this to this law enforcement officer. I said, the sheriff was making the point. I've got 60 deputies. I can't train them all in Spanish and Russian and Portuguese and all these various languages. And what that tells you is his deputies have had to confront Russian speakers. And he's like, oh, yeah, same thing here in the Gallatin Valley. He said, we got the cartels going crazy. We got this, we got that.
I talked to the Forest Service, and just a brief point here. They said their number one problem right now is people living in the forest in the summertime. So when you go out on the trails and the backlogging roads and access points, you'll run along these encampments of people living there. They can't afford to live and have a house. And if they do, they pack 10, 12 people in them. We had an incident up here by Cooper Park up here.
That's right.
Charles Garner, you wanted to say something here as well.
Well, the border seems to be an intentional effort at destruction of America. This ties in with the Roman Empire. The greatest threat that we had in terms of the Roman Empire came during what is called the 3rd century crisis. There were 7 factors that came together over a 50-year period of time, began in 235, ended in about 284. Those 7 factors, one of those was an invasion. The northern Germanic tribes came across the northern border, and we have trouble with our southern border. The Romans were having trouble with their northern border, the Rhine. So these people were coming across. They were going down into what is now France and Spain, all the way to northern Africa. These were invading, but the Roman emperors pushed them back across the border and got control of their territory. Because if you do not have control of your border, you are not a sovereign nation. You're not an empire. Okay? And so we're having difficulty on our southern border. In 406, think about the timing of this. In 406, a phenomenon occurred. It wasn't global warming.
406?
406.
I love the analogy there. Because we are in the 406 right now, baby. Yeah.
Well, it has a parallel, I promise you. The Rhine River froze over. Temperatures dropped, froze over, and the mass of the Germanic tribes flooded into the Roman Empire in 406. In 410, those same Germanic tribes invaded the city of Rome, which was the traditional capital of the Roman Empire. It had been moved to Constantinople at that particular time. We have the same kind of thing going on here. We have an invasion, and the Roman Empire, Western Roman Empire, fell in 476, 70 years later.
Wow.
3 generations, and it fell.
Well, we've got some candidates in the elections this fall that want to save America, and boy,
yes.
is it more important now than ever. All right, the Montana Family Foundation legislative update coming up next.
Your morning espresso starts right here. It's the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
The White House puts out official transcripts whenever the president speaks. And in this folks, imagine what we can do the next 4 more years. Pause. The way they write it up in the official transcript. 4 more years. Inaudible. Now, let's play that again, because it sounds very audible to me when he says pause. You decide.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years.
What do you call that, Linda? Propaganda, misinformation, lying, all the above?
I mean, I call it lying. I think lying really sums it up well.
The Sean Hannity Show from coast to coast later today.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle, unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. With ZipRecruiter, one click sends your job to hundreds of top job sites. But more than that, ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies the candidates with the skills you need, sends you a list of great matches to review, then actively invites them to apply for your job. And the results speak for themselves. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's right, the first day. Now you can focus on your business and let ZipRecruiter do the work finding the best people for you. See for yourself. Experience the ease, efficiency, and power of ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
This is the Montana Economic Minute.
Suppose your local power company, maybe it's Northwestern, maybe it's a co-op, gets a phone call from a prospective new customer. Can you, the power company, supply us, the customer, with 300 megawatts for a new data center we want to build? It's a question that would never be asked, of course, simply because such a request would overwhelm Montana's capacity to produce the power, representing more than 10% of what the entire state demands today. Yet such requests are happening all over, especially in larger states. In fact, 300 megawatts might be a modest request. The new centers envisioned to serve AI could draw 3 times that amount of power. That's only one factor that may drive increased demand for electricity in the near future. Electric cars, the banning of natural gas used for homes, the AI revolution driving increased demand for computer power, and the shift to electricity to reduce emissions point to growth in electricity demand that is much higher than what many are forecasting. I'm Patrick Barkey.
Paid for by Troy Downing for Congress. Brought to you from the Montana Hot Spring Spas, the hot tub company that your friends recommend, Studio. talking about the issues that matter to Montana, statewide. This is Montana Talks with Aaron Flint.
Time now for a legislative update brought to you by the Montana Family Foundation. Here's President of the Montana Family Foundation and former Speaker Pro Tem of the Montana House of Representatives, Jeff Laszloffy.
The ongoing tension between Republican lawmakers and the Montana Supreme Court took another turn this week as 12 members of the Montana legislature introduced a petition for a special session to consider a bill allowing Supreme Court candidates to declare a party affiliation. These races are currently nonpartisan, and some legislators argue that this denies voters of one of the most important pieces of information necessary to cast an informed vote. This same bill in various forms has been introduced in past legislative sessions, with moderate Republicans voting with Democrats to kill the bills and maintain the status quo. This latest push came after a recent spate of decisions in which lawmakers alleged the court tread firmly on legislative authority, the most controversial of which was a recent decision striking down 3 new election integrity laws. Claims of judicial overreach are nothing new, but the Montana Supreme Court in its current makeup seems determined to strike down every important piece of legislation passed during the past 2 legislative sessions. Ironically, the push for more transparency in judicial elections is nothing new. 20 years ago, in the case of Minnesota v. White, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Republican Party of Minnesota when they challenged the announce clause in the Minnesota judiciary's canons of judicial ethics. Announce clauses typically bar judicial candidates from stating how they would rule on cases that might come before the court. Candidates frequently hide behind this rule and refuse to answer any questions of substance, leaving voters with virtually no information upon which to cast their votes. In its decision, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Minnesota's announce clause, and in so doing made 2 critical points. First, they said that candidates who file for judgeships do not forfeit their First Amendment right to speak freely, and second, voters have both the right and the responsibility to cast informed votes. In spite of this decision, the Montana Standards of Judicial Ethics still contain an announce clause, and Montana judicial candidates continue to hide behind it, leaving voters uninformed and frustrated. The truth of the matter is that this reduces judicial races to little more than contests involving name recognition. The left-leaning Montana Trial Lawyers Association typically backs the liberal candidate with big dollars and TV ads, while the historically less well-funded conservative candidate struggles to get name recognition. It's important to note that the bill proposed would not require candidates to declare a party affiliation. It would simply allow them to if they so choose. And like it or not, party affiliation is one of the clearest ways to convey a candidate's worldview. Voters have long said that the judicial election process is a farce, with candidates claiming to be nonpartisan when it's clear, especially in their later rulings on cases, that they are not. Former Supreme Court Justice Mike Wheat and current Chief Justice Mike McGrath both held public office for years as Democrats. To believe that they can suddenly cast aside their worldview and become truly nonpartisan defies both logic and common sense. This petition may or may not result in a special session, but regardless of what happens, the issue of judicial transparency is likely to be hotly contested for years to come. For the Montana Family Foundation, this is Jeff Laszloffy reminding you that this government is your government, and your input does make a difference.
All right, let me cut it right there.
Montana Family Foundation.
All right, thank you to Jeff Laszloffy of the Montana Family Foundation for another great update. Hey, I'm enjoying a great breakfast here at the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman. They've got a great little cafe here if you've never tried it. I even had a nice steak dinner here a couple weeks ago when I was in town for the Fusion Fights. But hey, I'll tell you what, if you're back in Billings or you're going to be in Billings for Mother's Day and you haven't got plans yet for Mother's Day brunch, check out the Montana Sky Restaurant, 20th floor of the Doubletree Hotel. Great view of the Beartooth Mountains and more, and great food. I got to try some of the chicken marsala, some of the lamb and tzatziki and everything, and they're going to have a prime rib carving station. Man, if you ain't hungry yet, let me keep talking about the Montana Sky Restaurant. Mother's Day brunch, give them a call to get your reservation. And then, hey, if you miss them, show up for breakfast or dinner next week.